In this video, we're going to create this colorful pineapple just in time for summer. All you'll need is your oil pastels, some yellow and green paper. If you don't have yellow and green paper, you can just draw on white. It just means you'll have to work a little bit harder than I do. And then a sheet of white paper for your background. Let's get started. What we're going to do is start with the base of our pineapple. So if you are working on a white piece of paper, you're just going to, on the bottom half of your page, draw a nice big oval pineapple. If you are like me and cheating, using a piece of yellow paper, we're going to draw a nice big oval. And I don't want you to draw a small little oval in this beautiful piece of yellow paper. We need to try and make it as big as we can. So a nice big oval. What I've done is squished the top and the bottom down a little bit. So it's not a perfect oval. It's kind of a rectangular oval. Okay, once you are happy with your oval shape, we're going to start adding some details to it that will make it easier for us to color in. Now, a pineapple's got all these little like diamond shapes on it. So to do that easily, we're going to draw a nice pattern for it. And I'm going to draw a curved line, so not a straight line across, because that's going to make our pineapple look flat. We want a nice curved line to make it look round. So from this bottom left-hand corner, I'm going across up to the right-hand side at a curve. Okay, and then leave about a thumb space or kind of a centimeter. Draw another one that's as similar to that one as possible. So if you're at that stage of maths, it's a parallel line. And I'm going to keep drawing them, these diagonal parallel lines, across my pineapple. Now I'm going above my line. It doesn't matter if you get them slightly off or they're a little bit closer together in some spots. As we color in the pineapple, you'll hide all those little imperfections. Now that we've done all of these diagonal lines, we need to do more diagonal lines in the opposite direction to create our diamond shapes. So what I'm going to do is start at the top here, and we're going to use the ends of these lines to join them together. So I'm drawing from there to there. Then from my next lowest line, I'm drawing a line across. Lowest line, I'm drawing a line across. Okay, these ones are going to come from the edge. We'll just have little ones here. Okay, now on the ends where we have these little lines, they actually stick out a little bit. So we don't want to have this perfectly smooth pineapple because that's not realistic. It needs to come out in a little bulge. So I'm going along the edge of my pineapple now, and from where the lines meet to the next, I'm adding a little bulge coming out. It's going to make our pineapple look more realistic, and then I'm going to do it on the other side too. Don't worry so much about the ones at the top and at the bottom. Right, now that we have this shape, we can start coloring in our pineapple. The first color that I'm going to be using is just called green. It's a darkish green, not the darkest green in my set. But it's number 21 if you're using Pentel pastels. And what we're going to do with that is just draw over those diagonal lines that we've just drawn. So I'm just taking my pastel, not pressing too hard because pineapples are not green, green, green. If we press really hard, we're just going to end up with a green pineapple. We don't want to press too hard because we want the main color in our pineapple to be the yellow. So we're just adding a little bit of green as a nice darker accent color. So you don't want it to overpower the picture. That's why I'm not pressing very hard with it. Okay, I'm just going over each of these lines that I've drawn. Right, the next color that I'm going to be using is my yellow green or your lighter green pastel. So it's called yellow green in the Pentel set, number 17. And I'm going to go around the edges of these lines. To start getting the pineapple shape, I'm actually going to go around each square or diamond shape. So instead of just going over the lines like I did with my dark green, I'm now making each of these a little bit more curved. We're going over the green, but then also coming into the circle a little bit. So we're helping to blend that green color in. Right, the next color that we're going to go on to is our yellow. I'm using my lemon yellow, which is number 1. Okay, yellow and green go into each other really nicely because they're next to each other on the color wheel. So just on the inside of my green, I'm going to do some yellow coloring. So we're just coming closer and closer into the center. So some of your bigger kites that are in the center, you are going to still have a lot of space, and maybe these smaller ones that are near the outside, you're kind of running out of space now. That's fine. So I'm still leaving a little bit uncolored in the center of each of these kite shapes, except maybe the ones that are on the outside edge and there's not really space for anything else. Right, the next color we're going to is orange. Now usually green and orange don't work well together, but because we've put yellow in between them, and yellow blends well with orange and it blends well with green, it's kind of like a buffer color that makes the two colors blend together nicely. So what we're going to do is inside each of these little cuts, we're going to do a little triangle, or an arrow shape rather, with some light coloring underneath it. So I'm drawing an arrow pointing up and a little bit of light coloring inside it. If the shape is too small, don't worry about it. So these ones down here, I'm just going to put a little bit of orange coloring in the middle. I'm not going to actually draw it. And maybe these ones on the edges, you want to draw it closer to the edge if you can fit it, but if you can't fit it, just draw a little fleck of orange in it. Now what we're going to do is come back with our yellow, and the reason that we couldn't do the orange and then the yellow is to help blend the orange. We didn't want to just put green and orange on the page and then try and blend both colors at the same time, because they would have muddied each other if they had mixed together. So we need to now come back with our yellow, and what I'm doing is just coloring over that light coloring in each of the triangles at the bottom to help blend the color in a bit. Right, what we're going to do next is grab our red pastel. This really is a colourful pineapple. We're going to try and use all of the colours in your pastel box. With our red, we're going to do a really thin line over the top of each of our arrows. So you can see I'm not pressing very hard with my red. We don't want a great big fat red line, we just want a little red line. Again, if it's on the side and you can't do it well, just draw a little line or a little marking of red, just a touch of red there. Okay, now something else that we're going to do to tie the red in is on the right hand side, we're just going to do this bottom right hand corner with a little bit of red in it. So you can see I'm hardly touching the page, just drawing a little fleck of red, and it's always in the bottom right hand corner of the kite shape. You can see some of them I'm almost drawing an L shape, so I'm doing a little bit of this line and then the bottom line there. Need to be careful with this that you don't smudge it, because green and red are complementary colors, which means they look great next to each other, but they don't look great mixed together. They make like a brown color. So we must just be very careful with this. Right, speaking of brown, that is the next color we're using. So I'm using a nice dark brown. It's called Van Dyke Brown. It's number 9 if you use the Pentel pastels. And for this, we're just going to do that little thorn thing. So it's the very tip top of our triangle or arrow shape. It's just going to be in brown. So we still want the red and the orange to show through. We're just making the little almost peak or tip of it a brown color. Right, the next color we're going to use is a nice dark blue. So I'm using my cobalt blue, which is number 23. And this is again going to be a nice darker shade. So we're going to do it on the right hand side because we've done all our little bits of darkness from the red on the right hand side. And for this we're almost going to do just a V of color here. Now I've pressed pretty hard there. We're just going to press lighter for these. I just made this first one nice and hard so that you could see exactly what I was doing, but I don't want you to press quite so hard. So on each of our triangles, try not to draw over the red. So do it next to the red. Make sure that the red is still showing through. So this is just adding a little bit of shadow to each of our kite shapes. It all helps it look more three-dimensional at the end and more colorful. Could do a little bit more blue at the bottom because the bottom of the pineapple is going to be a bit darker. So I'm kind of outlining the bottom of my pineapple. And at the top there's going to be a shadow from all the leaves at the top of the pineapple. So you could also add a little bit more blue to the top to show that shadow. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is take my pale blue, which is number 14, and I'm going to lighten the opposite side of it. So I've done the right hand corners of each of these kites. Now with my blue, I'm going to do the left hand corners. This left hand side of the pineapple is going to be lighter, so you can add a bit more blue onto that side. It looks quite nice if each of these lines is a little bit different. So if you keep them all the same, it starts to look too much like a pattern. So you can let some of them press a little harder, some of them press lighter, some of them can be slightly longer. Okay, what I'm going to do now is take my yellow pastel again and just make sure that these colors have blended together nicely. So it's looking still a little bit separate. So I'm just going to go over the reds and the orange. This is especially important if you have done this on a piece of white paper because you don't want too much white showing through. So go with your yellow and kind of merge the colors together because yellow is the color that's going to glue everything together. It's the color that blends well with every color we've put on. Right, and that's the bottom of our pineapple. If you are just drawing yours on a sheet of white paper, then this next part you're just going to draw it from the top of your pineapple. But if you're being a little bit lazy like me and using a piece of green paper, we're going to move to that now. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just put my green paper at the top of my pineapple. And this will help me make sure that I make the leaves of the pineapple the right size. I don't want these great big leaves and then they don't fit with the bottom of my pineapple. And what we're going to do for this is triangle shapes. So they're going to be thick at the bottom and get really thin at the top. But they've also got to be a little bit curved. So we're not drawing these perfectly straight mathematical triangles. We're drawing more organic shapes. And we're just going to start with 2 coming from the top of our pineapple. So I've got my first curved line here, and then I'm going to start my second one and just slowly move it closer to the top of that one. So that's what I would call a curved triangle. We need the leaves to overlap each other. So instead of starting at the bottom of my page, I'm going to start about 1 centimeter up the leaf I've just drawn and draw my curved line. And then from there, I'm going to take it back and let it go to the base. Okay, now I'm just going to keep my leaves here so that I can keep checking, does this look okay with the size of my pineapple? Because the leaves and the pineapple should be in proportion to each other. Okay, again from here, I'm going to draw another one that curves up. And to the left. As you get further up, you can make the leaves slightly larger and longer. So the 2 leaves that are at the bottom are going to be your smallest leaves probably, and then as you go up they can get a bit bigger. You can also have leaves just coming out the middle here, so it doesn't have to be 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. This one I'm making 3 leaves out of this layer, and I'm probably just going to do one more over here and leave it. I think that's good. So don't make your leaves taller than the bottom of your pineapple. It should be a little bit shorter. Okay, and then we're going to get to coloring these leaves now. So to color them, I'm going to start with my darkest green that I have. That is called deep green, because I have a big set of pastels. If you have a smaller set, you're just going to use your dark green. And we're going to color in the bottom of each of these leaves, because they're going to have a little bit more shadow than the top. So I'm going to start with a nice dark line along the bottom part of my leaf, and then a little bit of light coloring, and there's also going to be some dark coloring here. Then I'm going to go to the other side, a dark line, as it gets lighter. Where it comes out the other leaf, it's going to be a bit darker, so the base of it. Okay, then the next layer we're going to start with dark shading along the base and then the bottom. The reason that we're doing this dark shading is to create definition between the leaves so that it doesn't just look like one big blob at the end, that you can see it's a whole lot of different leaves. So it's very important that you do that dark shading in the spot where the leaves touch each other. Right, now I've got my light green or yellow green, and I'm going to color the top of each of these leaves. So I'm going to start at the top and then work my way down to the dark shading and color over it. If you find there's a big line between the light and the dark, just do some circular shading or circular coloring, and that will help mix the 2 colors together. Do you see how we have this nice definition between the leaves now? They don't just look like one big green blob. Yeah, it's not turning out too badly. I think we just keep it like this. If you wanted to, just to tie it in with your bottom pineapple, you could also use the light blue again, your really light blue, the pale blue, to add a few flecks of light. You just need to make sure that these are really small, thin little lines that you don't press too hard, else it can look a bit funny. And I'm just using the edge of my pastel, so I've got a nice sharp point there, so I get a really thin line. The other thing is I'm not just drawing a line across the whole of the top of the leaf, I'm just going in sections. So there I did a little bit at the top and a little bit down the bottom here. Now I'm just doing a little bit in the middle there and on that end. So if you make each one slightly different and they're all not just these thick, fat, solid lines, it can look really nice. Right, now that we've coloured in our pineapple and the leaves for the top, we're just going to cut them out quickly. Right, now before we stick this down onto our pages, you can do your own background. So I'm going to show you a couple of different options, but you could do whatever you wanted. So here's one with just a bright pink background, and I'm just going to test that out and see how I like it. So that will give you an idea of what your pineapple would look like on a nice bright pink background. For this background, I just took my light blue and coloured in stripes. So here's a picture of my pineapple on that background. That also looks nice. Black and white stripes I think would also look great. I'm just going to show you with a second pineapple here. This is yellow stripes. You could use any colour you wanted really. So there's tons of options, and I want you to use your own creativity for the background and colour it in whatever colour you like. Literally any colour will go with this pineapple. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button or subscribe to our channel. We put up great ideas every week. Check out our playlist on oil pastels if you'd like to do more.